This Baldur's Gate 3 series covers how to do all major quests and missable content in order so that all achievements or trophies, choices, and major rewards will be available. We will be striving to get the most optimal or good outcomes for all companions, recruit the most allies, obtain all legendary weapons and armor, and have an overall satisfying playthrough. For best results, follow this series from the start of Part 1. Spoilers will be limited to important information, and as usual, useful timestamps can be found in the video description. Now, I don't usually do this, but if you really like this series and want to help more people see it, you can do so by liking the video, and I sincerely appreciate it. Part 2 of this series will take us through the entirety of Act 2, all of which takes place within the Shadow-Cursed lands. To get there, we can head east from the Grimforge fast travel point and use the elevator. Before we actually get into the Shadow-Cursed lands, we will be stopped by a weary traveler. We can go to camp with him immediately, triggering a major story moment with Gale. If we don't go now, this interaction will happen during the next long rest. Saying, "If even the gods know, why are we facing these threats alone?" will get us approval from Gale if it isn't already maxed out. Also, I tend to start choosing options that might dissuade Gale from making a dumb decision in the near future. After this interaction, we should get Gale's companion achievement, Repairing the Weave, and we can also speak to Gale about it. Afterwards, we can leave camp and head out into the Shadow-Cursed lands. We'll want to use the light spell on 1 or 2 characters in order to ward off the lesser shadow curse in this initial area. Upon contact with the curse, Shadowheart's quest will be updated and we can speak to her about it. Moving southwest, we'll run into a group of Harpers, which we should be friendly towards. After a short interaction, a combat encounter with some shadows will ensue. Shadowheart's Radiance of the Dawn is really strong here, and Karlach can also deal some serious damage with her Manifestation of Soul passive, which adds radiant damage to every punch. After the fight, we can agree to follow the Harpers, then head further southwest. There's a dead raven on the ground, and interacting it will trigger an ambush. That being said, Shadowheart won't be surprised with the alert feat and can use Radiance of the Dawn to wipe out all of the ravens in one fell swoop. This will grant a ton of easy XP. Following this, we can move northwest into the boundaries of Last Light Inn. There, we'll be confronted by the Harpers. We can fight through the vines, but we don't want to attack Jaheira, and should instead aim to reach a peaceful understanding. Karlach will recognize Jaheira, and we can talk to her about it after the altercation is resolved. Next, we can speak with Quartermaster Tolly to buy some useful items, such as the Cloak of Protection. A short distance north, we'll find Dammon, and speaking with him while Karlach is near will progress her quest and romance, closing off any existing romances with other companions. So if we want to see the new items that Dammon has, while also avoiding any issues with existing romances, we can send Karlach a short distance away before speaking with Dammon. He sells the Darkfire Shortbow, which can be equipped to any character to give them the ability to cast haste once per long rest. This is a very powerful item, and so it's definitely worth buying. Also, we can exchange Infernal Iron to get the various pieces of the Flawed Helldusk armor set. In total, there are 3 pieces to get, and that should leave us with 1 final Infernal Iron to fix up Karlach later on. There is also at least 1 more piece of Infernal Iron that we can find in the Shadow-Cursed lands. At this point, we can attack and defeat the Strange Ox nearby to get the Hat of Fire Acuity and Shapeshifter's Boon Ring. We should get Astarion in the party before going to the inn, because there are some things that we can do there with him. First, if we use a potion of animal speaking and speak with the cat named His Majesty, we can get some approval with Astarion by saying, "What's got your whiskers in a twist?" followed by, "My intentions are pure, I only want to admire you up close," and then quietly admire the cat. Next, we can speak with Raphael and Mol and advise Mol to put pressure on him attack the pieces in front of his king. If Astarion is with us, we will eventually want to say, "What are you talking about, Astarion? What scars?" Followed by, "Gods, the carvings must have been excruciating," to get more approval with him. After that, we can go speak with Mol directly and at least make her aware of the fact that she's dealing with a real devil. We can ask her about Raphael's offer and even press for the truth of it, although this might require passing a passive insight check. Ultimately though, we are best off not trying to dissuade Mol from her ambitions as it won't work. We can also talk to Karlach about the interaction, and it's best to have faith in Mol. Next, we can speak with Astarion, and we will need to tell him about Gandrel the Gur. If we speak with Astarion again, he will tell us about Cazador, and we will eventually want to say, "I'll watch your back, don't worry," to get some more approval. At this point, our approval level with Astarion should be high, and he can be sent back to camp for the time being. You can also keep him in the group if you want, but this next part will involve choices that Astarion will not approve of, so I'm going to switch him back out for Lae'zel. Back at the inn, we can find and speak with Mattis. He sells the evasive shoes, which are good on any character. We can also ask if Mattis has any stock for an extra special customer, then persuade him to give us the tower-shaped key. We should also speak with Alfira and agree to help rescue the tieflings from Moonrise Towers. We can also find Barcus Root here and reassure him that we will go look for Wulbren and the other Iron Hand gnomes. Next, we can go to the northern room to find Ard Kulla, equip our Headband of Intellect, and have a look at him. There are several checks we can do and ultimately obtain the Worn Letter. That being said, we don't absolutely need it. We can also speak with Counselor Floric here to learn about Lord Gortash, of which Karlach will have something to say. In addition, Rolan can be found near the back of the inn, drinking too much. Regardless of what we say, he will be inconsolable. After that, we can speak with Jaheira, allow Karlach to have her fan moment, then agree to infiltrate Moonrise Towers. We will then head upstairs and move to the north room, where we will find Isobel. It's a good idea to save beforehand and make sure Shadowheart has the Sanctuary spell prepared, as our interaction with Isobel will be immediately followed by a tough combat encounter. As a quick side note, you can save as often as you want, and more is better when it comes to this game. We'll need to make sure we side with Isobel and defend her from being captured or killed by Marcus. The enemies will prioritize attacking Isobel, and the best way to protect her is with the Sanctuary spell. That being said, haste on Lae'zel or Karlach will go a long way in quickly clearing out all the enemies, which will keep everyone at the inn alive. I like to have Karlach go after Marcus and either stun or outright eliminate him, as he poses the greatest threat to the people at the inn. Step of the Wind dash is a great way to reach him if he happens to fly to the lower level. Marcus drops the Shifting Corpus Ring when defeated, and we can get some new dialogue by speaking with the various NPCs around the inn after the fight. For example, we can speak with Mattis and agree to help find and rescue Mol from Moonrise Towers. Afterwards, we'll meet a group of Harpers near the entrance to Last Light Inn, and we can follow them on a mission to retrieve Moon Lantern. Once at the ambush point, we can speak with one of the Harpers to initiate the encounter. I like to take the diplomatic approach and confront the Drider and his followers with persuasion and deception. With high charisma, we can pass a couple of skill checks to get the Drider to willingly give up the Moon Lantern and leave in peace. Upon picking up the lantern, we'll have the choice of freeing the pixie trapped within. Doing so will get us a bell that applies the Pixie Blessing buff, which protects us against the more severe form of the Shadow Curse. Also, if you smash the lantern to free the pixie, you'll get cursed with a clown face. From here, we can move a short distance northeast to activate the Shadowed Battlefield fast travel point. Across a small gap to the north, we'll find a lone night orchid, and this can be given to Shadowheart for a big boost in approval, and it will also unlock the To Bloom in Darkest Night achievement. East of the fast travel point, we will meet a boy named Oliver. He will become important later, but for the time being, we can play along with his game. He will first try hiding behind the wooden cart outside. After finding him and agreeing to play a second round, Oliver will summon his parents to try and find us before we find him. For this part, we'll need to sneak our way back into the ruined house to avoid detection, then pass 2 turns. At that point, we can speak with Oliver in the corner of the room to get the Ring of Shadows. We can also lockpick the nearby chest to get the Ring of Mental Inhibition, which is quite good on Shadowheart. Next, we'll travel west. There is a pretty neat ambush encounter that will be triggered by walking into the ruined house near the river. For now though, we can avoid it and move south to the southernmost bridge that spans the river. There, we will need to act fast in order to save the tiefling Rolan from 2 shadows. We must save him to get the Leave No One Behind achievement later on. After his pity party is over, we will want to save the game, then move west over the bridge, walking down the path. Along the way, we will be intercepted by a projection of Mizora. Upon a successful passive perception check, we will get the option to bargain Will out of his pact. Moving on, we can ascend up the path and discover the waypoint for Moonrise Towers. We will be covering all the long rests for Act 2 shortly, but before doing that, I want to tackle 2 more combat encounters. So if you need, you can skip ahead to see those long rests covered, and then take your own as needed. The first encounter is a short distance to the north. If we tricked the Drider envoy to walk into the Shadow Curse earlier, they will be found here, now consumed by shadows. Shadowheart can tackle this encounter almost single-handedly, assuming she is hasted. With the right gear equipped, which I'll take a moment to show here, and a level 4 Spirit Guardian spell, she can basically just run around damaging, blinding, and knocking prone all the enemies she walks by. There are a couple of magic items on these enemies, including the Cruel Sting Sword and the Thermo-Arcanic Gloves. Also, there is a puzzle to be solved here at this statue, but we'll save that for after our next long rest in order to maximize the resulting buffs that we get. For now, we can move a short distance southeast to the Wreathwind Tollhouse. In order to get the Penny Pincher achievement, we'll basically need to defeat the Toll Collector before she can attack us, and so saving is recommended. The first thing we will need to do is turn everyone invisible, or at least our Karlach monk, with either a well-thrown invisibility potion or by making use of a magic item that allows free casting of the invisibility spell, such as the Shifting Corpus Ring. After that, we can sneak up behind the Toll Collector and enter turn-based mode once she is standing near the open window looking out over the town. We can then sneak up on her with Karlach and use Flurry of Blows pushed to send the Toll Collector plummeting to the ground below. This should nearly kill her, and we can finish the job with a single cast of Magic Missile or any other ranged attack. If done correctly, this should net the Penny Pincher achievement. Succeeding on a strength check will allow us to open up the door of the safe nearby, granting access to an easy 500 gold. We can also get an additional 250 gold off the toll collector below. Feel free to explore the toll house at your own leisure, otherwise we will go ahead and cover all the unique and eventful long rests at this point. During the first long rest, we should be able to speak with Astarion about the sigil on his back and help him see it for himself. We can also talk to Karlach about her worsening condition and with Will about the recent encounter with Mizora. Upon going to bed, we will have another encounter with the Dream Visitor. If we manage to pass both the passive perception and insight checks, we will get the option to hug our Dream Visitor. That being said, it's not a crucial step in romancing the Dream Visitor, so don't worry too much about save scumming until you succeed. In my experience, it is not very likely to happen unless you have a character with high wisdom. During the second long rest, Astarion will tempt us to take control of the Absolute, rather than destroy it. Personally, I flat out rejected this proposition, but I don't think it matters all that much as far as responses go. There will be more unique long rests to come, but that's all there is for the time being. So with that, we can go ahead and prepare for the day, then return to the Moonrise Towers fast travel point and move a short distance north to the statue. Once there, we will need to read the surrounding plaques in a specific order. The northern plaque is first, followed by the western plaque, and finally the eastern plaque. Reading them in this order will open a secret passage to a Sharran sanctuary. After making sure the Headband of Intellect is equipped, we will interact with the statue to the northeast. Succeeding on this saving throw will provide us with a 5-point boost to our intelligence score. Next, we can interact with the central statue. Succeeding here will grant a 5-point boost to charisma. And finally, I like to interact with the last statue on Monk Karlach, as it will boost wisdom by 5 points, raising her AC by 3 points thanks to the way unarmored defense works on monks. Once all 3 trials have been passed, another chamber will open where we can perform a blood ritual to get several useful items as a reward. On the other hand, stealing the ritual dagger will result in a tough combat encounter, one that offers few if any rewards, and mainly serves to drain resources and punish us. Next up, we can leave the sanctuary and move a short distance southwest to the waning moon. We will want to equip the Gloves of Thievery before making our way over to Thisobald Thorm. Doing so will start a skill challenge of sorts where we can either perform sleight of hand skill checks or constitution saving throws in order to drink Thisobald's brew or fake doing so. A combination of both constitution and sleight of hand checks seems to result in the most inspiration points. These checks will be interspersed with performance checks, regaling Thisobald with tales of adventure. And in case it wasn't already clear, save scumming may be required. Once Thisobald has been defeated, Madeline's Ledger, a quest item, can be found under some wooden planks in the corner of the bar, along with the Rat Bat magic weapon. There are some other interesting items beyond the locked door to the west, but nothing vital. However, we will definitely want to find the chest stashed near the southern entrance of the tavern, where a potion of angelic slumber can be found. To make use of Madeline's Ledger, we will need to head a fair distance east of Last Light Inn. We should eventually find He Who Was along with a raven. After speaking with them, we can agree to help. We will then need to speak to them again with the ledger in our inventory. Saving is advised here. We can choose how we want to approach this quest, but there are 2 main outcomes. The first is if we successfully punish Madeline, which is most easily accomplished through the second persuasion option, the one that begins with pathetic. If we do that, He Who Was will reward us with the Raven Gloves, which can summon Quoth the Raven, but only for as long as the gloves remain equipped. The second outcome is if we forgive Madeline. This will enrage He Who Was and he will attack us. Unfortunately, he does not drop any unique items when defeated. Regardless of how we deal with the quest, He Who Was does not return later in Act 2, nor in Act 3. In the end, it's really more of a moral quandary for us to work through, with the added benefit of getting some XP for our trouble. At this point, we can head south into Moonrise Towers. We will want to give away as little information as possible, while also maintaining our cover as absolute true souls. The first person we will want to speak with in Moonrise is Lan Tarv. Tarv was instructed to give up to 3 soul coins to Karlach, so long as she is willing to listen to the terrible stories of how they were acquired. Tarv also has some useful items for sale, including 2 potions of Angelic Reprieve and the Fistbreaker Helm, which is pretty useful on a sorcerer. The Halberd of Vigilance is also a great weapon for a fighter, assuming we don't already have the Silver Sword of the Astral Plane. If we avoided killing Roa Moonglow at the Goblin Camp, she will also be found here, with some new items. The most useful include the Ring of Spiteful Thunder and Drakethroat Glaive. The glaive isn't great for actual use in combat, but it can be used to provide a damage buff to Lae'zel's weapon. Just equip it on any other character, such as Karlach, then have her cast the Draconic Elemental Weapon spell on Lae'zel while Lae'zel has her sword equipped. For the choice of damage type, Thunder damage is a safe bet, as few enemies have resistance to it. Next, going through the door to the east, then another to the south, we will find Araj Obladra. She has some great items, including the Risky Ring and Ring of Free Action, both of which are great on Karlach. There is also the Thunderskin Cloak, which is good on Shadowheart when combined with the other items we've been using on her. We can also inquire about Obladra's special offer. If we want to see the conclusion of her story in Act 3, we will need to give her a drop of our blood. In return, we will get single-use elixirs that provide varying benefits depending on the race of the character's blood used to make them. The downside is that using one of these elixirs will result in a blood debuff the next day, which results in a -1 penalty to all d20 rolls. Obladra will also ask us to bring Astarion to her. If we do this, she will ask Astarion to drink some of her blood, which apparently tastes pretty bad. We can say, "Excuse me, he's his own person," to get some approval with him. We will then have one of 2 choices. If we say he said no, there's nothing more to discuss, we will get some approval with Astarion, but that's all. On the other hand, if we convince Astarion to go through with it, we will get a little bit of disapproval with him, but we will also gain a consumable that permanently increases the strength score of the drinker by 2 points. If we do go for the potion, I would argue that it's best to use it on a character that we don't already buff with elixirs of giant strength. Because of that, I just use it on my main character. With that handled, we can reform our main party and return to Moonrise. Next up, we can go to the main chamber at Moonrise, triggering a cutscene, and this is also where we get the achievement relating to Sazza. Assuming we rescued Sazza from both the Druid Grove and the Goblin Camp, we will eventually need to say "Guards, release them" when given the option. This will earn us the "She Cannot Be Caged" achievement. Heading upstairs, we can find and speak with Disciple Z'rell. As a consequence of our mercy, we will need to pass several skill checks in order to maintain our cover as faithful true souls. After succeeding in this, we will be pointed towards a necromancer by the name of Balthazar, whom we are tasked with aiding. This will also get us easy access to Balthazar's room, where we can get some unique items. We will find the Derivation Cloak within the locked heavy chest. We can also take a heart from one of the bodies, pull the Misty Tomes on the top right side of the nearby bookshelf, and place the heart in the ancient altar. This will open a hidden chamber, and we can unlock the opulent chest therein to get the Cold Brim hat. We can also go out the door to the north. From there, we can take control of Karlach and equip both a ring of jumping and a ring with invisibility on it. This will allow us to jump southwest towards another exterior area. From there, we can pick an easy lock to get into Ketheric's room. The reason we want a ring with invisibility is so that we can get to and pull the lever that will allow the rest of the party to rejoin us, without being detected by Ketheric's Warhound, which we will want to deal with on our high charisma main character. If we succeed on a performance or animal handling check, we can then speak with the dog again to pet it. This effectively turns the dog into an ally. Within the nearby locked chest is the Cloak of Elemental Absorption. There's also an interesting lore-based book hidden under some loose wooden planks by Ketheric's bed. Finally, back through that southern door is a wooden chest, which in reality is a mimic. It drops the Spine Shudder amulet when defeated, which could be good on Shadowheart. At this point, we can go save the prisoners in Moonrise. Fast traveling back to Moonrise and returning to the main room on the ground floor, we can head through the door to the northwest and follow the trail of blood down the staircase. Walking along the prison cells, we'll find two groups of prisoners, the Tieflings and the Iron Hand Gnomes. Upon speaking with either, we will quickly be confronted by one of the guards. A quick deception or persuasion check will resolve the situation. We will need to speak with Wulbren using our association with Barcus to gain his trust. We can then agree to help him and the others escape and relay that information to the Tieflings. Before enacting this plan, we'll need to clear out the roaming sentries and scrying eyes, and I recommend saving often for this part. We can start at the southwest end of the prison, gaining surprise on the Zealot while no one else is around, taking him down before he has the chance to alert anyone. We can then dispatch the adept by the same method, or throw her into the chasm when she gets close to a broken section of the guardrail. This will also need to be done with the two scrying eyes, and a potion of speed may be necessary to do everything before the eyes have a chance to set off the alarm. Sometimes the warden acts weirdly here and runs out to investigate the death of a scrying eye. In my experience, she doesn't turn hostile and eventually returns to her tower. Next, we can head into the central tower of the prison and surprise the warden, defeating her before she has a chance to react. She drops the very useful Spellcrux amulet when defeated. Finally, we can head up the ladder to defeat the last scrying eye. While up here, we can find the magic brow-beaten circlet and, more importantly, Wulbren's hammer. With that in hand, we can save the game, then return to Wulbren, where we will have a special prompt to give him his hammer. We will then say it's time, let's do this, and return to the warden's tower to pull all the small levers on the back wall, which will open up the prison cells. This will allow us to ensure that all the prisoners escape safely. Next, we can meet up at the northern end of the cave system and escort all of the escapees to Last Light Inn. Successfully rescuing all of the prisoners will earn us the Under Lock and Key achievement, and is also necessary if we want to eventually earn the Leave No One Behind achievement. After the survivors undergo a brief inspection, they will go and reunite with their friends and family. This will open up some new dialogue opportunities and rewards within the tavern. Before that though, we can go find Danis and Bex reuniting near the north side of the protected zone. If we say something along the lines of "it was all thanks to me," we will get some handmade cookies as a reward. Within the inn, we can speak with Alfira to get some nice rewards. We can also speak with Rolan to help him reconcile with his family, get some gold, and some humility and gratitude from Rolan, which is a nice change of pace. Last but not least, we can speak with Barcus, alerting him to Wulbren's return. We can then bear witness to their reunion. We will probably want to tiptoe around the one-sided nature of their relationship for now, and advise that Barcus wait to leave Last Light Inn until it is safe. For our efforts, Barcus will give us the brilliant retort, which is an admittedly underwhelming reward. All that said, we will also be able to trade with Barcus now, getting at least one useful item, the Ring of Geniality. Right around this time, we will also be getting to level 8. For Sorcerer, I'll be taking the Fireball spell, but feel free to pick something different. I'll also be taking the Elemental Adept Lightning feat, which will make all lightning-based spells a lot more effective. Fighter also gains a third feat, and Sentinel is a great choice here, as it opens up new opportunities to deal additional damage. For Cleric, I go with a straight ability score improvement, increasing Wisdom to 18. Finally, on Karlach the Monk, we can get the Alert feat. Now instead of lagging behind in combat turn order, she will almost always be the first to act. Next up, we'll head back to Moonrise Towers and move north into the town area. To the northeast of here is the Masons Guild. We can find a piece of infernal iron there, and there is also an ornate wooden hatch that can take us to a hidden area. Ultimately, there is nothing vital to do here, but feel free to explore on your own. Just north of the Sharran Sanctuary, we will encounter Arabella. We will want to agree to find her parents and allow her to stay at our camp. Afterwards, we'll proceed into the graveyard. A short distance in, we can find the True Love's Caress ring on a skeleton. By unlocking the grated iron doors to a nearby tomb, we can also get the Boots of Apparent Death. To the north, we'll find the Icebite robes within one of the two paired sarcophagi. We can then move southwest towards the House of Healing. There, we'll find Sister Lidwin tending to Arabella's parents. Unfortunately, they are no longer alive, and there is no way that we could have saved them. Also, if we succeed on a skill check with Lidwin, she will trade supplies with us, though she does not have much. Before we forget, let's head back to camp and speak with Arabella. We should inform her of her parents' fate, as she will need at least one long rest to process and accept it. With that handled, we can return to the House of Healing. Near the southwest corner is a skeleton that has the True Love's Embrace, the matching ring to the True Love's Caress. We can equip the True Love's Embrace on one character, such as Lae'zel, and she will be the protector. We can then equip the True Love's Caress on another character, one that needs protecting, such as our main character. We can then have Lae'zel cast Gentle Warding Bond on our main character, giving them extra protection from damage and enemy attacks. The rings can be taken off after the spell is cast, and it should stay active until the next long rest. While here, we can also equip the Ring of Geniality on our main character and speak with Sister Cinda, using a skill check to gain uncontested access to the theater, which is located to the north. Going there, we'll stumble upon a grisly scene, and this is also where we can get the Non-Invasive Procedure achievement, though we definitely want to save before doing it. To get the achievement, we will need to be very efficient in dispatching Malice Thorm. After saving, we can enter turn-based mode and use Twin Haste on Karlach and Lae'zel. We can also use Spirit Guardians on Shadowheart. We can then exit turn-based mode and begin talking with Malice, skipping through the dialogue and initiating combat at the first opportunity. We can start by having Shadowheart go in and do her thing. Between the Spirit Guardians and her Radiance of the Dawn, she should have all of the enemies prone on the ground and heavily damaged. And feel free to use any potions of speed, as we can revert to before this encounter once we have the achievement unlocked. Next, Karlach can head in and spam stunning strikes on Malice until he's stunned, preventing him from taking any actions. Again, we'll be pulling out all of the stops for this one. By making use of Lae'zel's action surge, this whole encounter can be mopped up in a single turn. This should unlock the non-invasive procedure achievement, and at this point we can go back to a save from before the encounter started. This time, we will speak with Malice rather than attack, and fair warning, this is pretty gruesome. To talk our way out of this encounter, we will start with a student, yes, do please enlighten me, followed by the persuasion check, these sisters aren't ready, they'll make me sick instead of curing me. Finally, we will need to pass a DC 21 persuasion check. They need a better subject to practice on first, not a student, but a master. This will completely bypass the combat encounter, and when defeated, Malice will drop the Surgeon's Subjugation Amulet and Battered Loot. We can then go into the back room to loot the Poisoner's Gloves from the painted chest. Now there are definitely some interesting encounters, items, and areas to explore to the west if you'd like, but none of it is vital to the story. Instead, we can head out the east door, and we will want to get Astarion in the party before proceeding for story purposes. Once that is done, we'll move north towards the Grand Mausoleum. There, we'll encounter Raphael. We can agree to Raphael's proposal, and Raphael will also promise to translate the inscriptions on Astarion's back upon our success. Before we do that though, let's take care of some other vital tasks. Before leaving, we can go discover the Grand Mausoleum fast travel point for an easy return. We can then go back to camp and reassemble the team. Next, we'll fast travel to Last Light Inn and return to Ard Kulla. We can wake him up by playing on the lute we picked up after defeating Malice Thorm. We'll then go to our camp and tell Halsin about Ard Kulla. Returning to Last Light Inn, we can speak with Halsin to progress his quest. Next, we'll need to go meet up with Halsin by the lakeshore to the north, just beyond the protective barrier. The encounter that follows here is pretty intense, so use whatever resources are needed to see it through. I'm not sure why, but in the current state of the game, this encounter acts buggy and basically puts our team at the end of the turn order. This makes an already difficult encounter even harder. To help with this, while speaking with Halsin and after saying "you can count on me," I recommend quickly having Shadowheart cast a wall of fire across the choke point to the east. This will greatly reduce the difficulty of the encounter, and we can then position her near the southwest side of the shore. After doing this, we'll want to rush through the remaining dialogue so that the encounter starts before the wall of fire goes out. After the initial rush of enemies, we can have Shadowheart wipe out the shadows to the west with a Radiance of the Dawn or Sunbeam. We can twin haste both Lae'zel and Karlach and have them clean up the remaining shadows before moving to defend the eastern line. The next round, tons of small adds will pop up. Shadowheart can wipe out most with her Radiance of the Dawn, and a magic missile from our sorcerer can clean up remaining minions. The final round of enemies will include multiple turned zealots and Githyanki warriors, along with more shadows to the southwest. We will want to prioritize the enemies near the east side, cleaning up the shadows after. Once all the threats have been dealt with, we can have Shadowheart stop concentrating on Wall of Fire, lest it accidentally burn Halsin alive, then end everyone's turn. Before leaving, I definitely recommend looting up, especially the Zealots and Githyanki, as they have valuable armor to sell. We can then head back to camp and speak with Halsin. To progress the quest, we will need to eventually say I met a sort of shadow child before, a little boy named Oliver, around Thaniel's age. Shortly after, Halsin will officially offer himself to the cause and can join the party as a full-on companion. That being said, if all you want to do is romance Halsin in Act 3, it's basically inevitable at this point, even if you never have him in the actual party. In any case, we will fast travel to the shadowed battlefield, then move northeast to confront Oliver. If you don't have a level 3 or 4 spell slot on Shadowheart, I would recommend using either the Pearl of Power or Spellcrux Amulet to restore one of those spell slots before proceeding. Even if we are kind to Oliver, he will not come willingly. Instead, we will need to follow him through the Shadow Portal. The most difficult or annoying part of this encounter are the 1 health point shadows that Oliver summons. To deal with them, Shadowheart can cast Spirit Guardians and serve as a safe spot for the rest of the party. Basically, cast Spirit Guardians and then have Lae'zel and Karlach dispatch the 2 large shadows. We do not want to attack Oliver's Night Dome barrier directly, as this will result in heavy backlash damage. Instead, after the 2 parent shadows have been dealt with, have everyone huddle up around Shadowheart, then just end everyone's turn and sit back as the minion shadows all throw themselves upon Shadowheart's Spirit Guardians. Each one that is defeated will chip away at Oliver's Night Dome barrier until it is destroyed. The Shadow plush will require special attention, but besides that, the encounter is fairly trivial and we'll just need to keep passing turns until the Night Dome is destroyed. After the fight, we will need to start by saying you have what you want but not what you need, followed by you were very brave and resourceful, and finally change is good. This will peacefully reunite Oliver and Thaniel. Optionally, we can return to Last Light Inn and update Ardculla on our success with saving Thaniel. We can also speak with Thaniel back at camp, and at this point, the Shadow Curse's days are numbered. All we need to do now is defeat Ketheric Thorm, which admittedly involves a few steps. To start, we'll fast travel to the Grand Mausoleum, then head inside. By the way, if you need to long rest, you can always skip ahead to the timestamp for the remaining long rests. Once inside, we'll head to the northernmost room where we will need to solve a simple puzzle before proceeding. We first need to hit the button beneath the southwest painting, Moonrise Towers, followed by the button beneath the southeast painting, Grief, and finally, the button beneath the northern painting, General. This will open a new room to the north where we can take an elevator down into a Sharran temple, the purpose of which will soon be revealed. Within the first room here, there are 2 force fields protecting a Umbral gem, and any source of light prevents those force fields from being seen. We can go around avoiding traps, trying to lower the hanging lanterns, which can then be extinguished, revealing the walls. But if you just know where to step, you don't actually need to see them to avoid them. Reaching and interacting with the Umbral gem will disarm the defenses in this first room. We could go through the northern stone door, which is the main entrance. However, I actually prefer the side path to the west. There, we can jump along some mushrooms to sneak our way deeper into the temple, bypassing one encounter. All that said, there is a cloaker waiting in ambush if we go down this path, but it's fairly easy to get surprise on. Once we've done that, we can take it out without spending any limited resources. The cloaker is hovering over a mushroom, which itself is overlooking a gilded chest. As long as we spot the cloaker, we can have Karlach jump up behind it while hiding and give it the works. Afterwards, we'll bust down the doors to the north and head inside the temple. In this first set of chambers, we'll find several rats chittering around an altar to Shar. We can take a potion of animal speaking, then talk to the rats, eventually starting a fight with them. Once a few have been defeated, the remainders will flee. Upon trying to leave the room, a single rodent should appear and strike up a bargain, which we can accept. Successfully praying to the altar of Shar here will grant a character resistance to necrotic damage until their next long rest, and this can be done with all 4 characters. However, failing this check will result in a pretty harsh curse. Shadowheart can remove it with Remove Curse, but that's a level 3 spell. Beyond the door to the north, we'll get into an encounter that can become somewhat challenging, but can also be kept very easy if we make the right moves. We'll start by having Lae'zel and Karlach split off from the group and sneak over to the 2 northern corners of the chamber. Then we'll initiate the encounter on our main character. The key here is to destroy the Umbral Tremors before they have a chance to spawn additional enemies. And really, as long as we keep our characters split up and efficiently take down the Tremors as they arise, it's pretty easy. Also, we should avoid using Radiant damage against the Justiciar enemies, as they have the Radiant Retort feature, which will deal twice as much damage back. Once that encounter is done, we can enter Balthazar's chambers and speak with him. We are going to kill him, but there's no reason not to be smart about it. For now, we'll play along with the ruse in order to get information and give Balthazar a false sense of security. If we succeed in the second persuasion check, we can get a bell that summons a flesh golem. However, we probably won't be using it. Honestly, the quickest and easiest way to deal with Balthazar is to have everyone go behind him, enter hiding and turn-based mode, then get the jump on him with some Karlach kicks and Lae'zel hits. He should go down before he gets a chance to act, which is kind of important because he can be a bit of a pain once he gets to do stuff. After that, we'll just need to clean up a flesh golem and 3 ghouls. Balthazar drops the Circle of Bones head armor along with a potion of speed if he didn't get the chance to use it. Returning to the previous chamber, we'll find a vault door to the north, which has a DC 30 lock. That being said, if we are able to get lucky and unlock it, or if you want to go level up Astarion and bring him to do it more easily, we can get at the goodies on the other side. This includes the Callous Glowing Ring, which is pretty good on just about anyone, but usually either Shadowheart or someone with Magic Missile. There is also lots of gold, a piece of Infernal Iron, and other useful consumables. Before moving on, we'll want to switch Karlach's passive damage type over from Radiant to Psychic. Alright, we can now head into the main part of this temple, through the door to the east. As can probably be guessed from the name of the fast travel point, this is the Gauntlet of Shar, and we can speak to Shadowheart to get some unique dialogue about it. In any case, we will first deal with Raphael's task. Moving far to the east, we'll eventually spot a Displacer Beast. We can follow it into an ambush, fairly confident that we'll be able to talk our way out of this situation. We will follow it up to the campfire where a pair of Dark Justiciar gauntlets can be found sitting nearby, at which point we will stop and prepare. There are lots of ways to resolve this upcoming encounter, and it's really neat, but I'm just going to cover the quickest and easiest way of doing it, which will also get us the most rewards. With that said, this is a good time to equip items that help with persuasion, such as the Ring of Geniality, Envoy's Amulet, and Silver Pendant. This would also be a good time to have Shadowheart cast Enhance Ability Owl's Wisdom on our main character, and have another character with the Silver Pendant do the same for guidance. Once ready, we can move towards the Displacer Beast to trigger the encounter. When Yurgir smells Raphael's scent on us, we should be forthcoming of our unfortunate association with him, and offer to work with Yurgir against Raphael. We will eventually need to save before asking about Yurgir's contract with Raphael, because this is where we get an important passive perception check. If we succeed on it, we will have access to a set of new persuasion checks that should be quite easy for us to pass as a charismatic sorcerer. The first begins with "The lyrics are a trick" and has a DC of 16. We might as well have Shadowheart give our characters Enhance Ability Eagle Splendor, as the subsequent checks will only get even more difficult. The second persuasion check has a DC of 21, as does the final persuasion check. If we pass all of these checks, Yurgir will no longer be a problem. We will fulfill our deal with Raphael and get a bunch of loot from the vanquished foes, including the Hellfire Hand Crossbow from Yurgir. We will also need to pick up the Umbral gem, which is sitting on the ground near the Throne of Corpses. Feel free to explore these halls at your own leisure, but for this guide, we're just going to focus on the important stuff. To start, we'll fast travel back to the waypoint. From there, we can head north into the Gauntlet of Shar. The first door to the west will contain the Soft Step Trial. For story purposes, we can allow Shadowheart to complete these trials when she asks. If we still need approval with Shadowheart, this will also help us with that. An easy way to do the Soft Step Trial is to just have Shadowheart take a potion of invisibility and go in on her own. We will enter through the door just left of the sacrificial bowl, then head west and towards the north. There will be a button that we can click which opens a path that leads directly to the final gate, which is locked. It's only a DC 10 lock though, so it's pretty easy to pick, even for Shadowheart. Once through, we can pick up the Umbral gem, then use the Umbral transporter to quickly return to the trial's entrance. Returning to the main walkway, we can continue moving north, until we reach a second door towards the west, which serves as the entrance to the self-same trial. For this one, we'll want to take Shadowheart in there alone, and make sure everyone else stays outside of the room. This next part seems weird at first, but trust me, it's actually smart. We will need to take off all of Shadowheart's equipment. The camp clothes can stay on. Then, we'll start the trial and re-equip all of her gear. If you've played Elden Ring, you might recall the Mimic tier boss fight. Well, this is kind of like that, and we just made it really easy. All we need to do now is sneak our way in. Our Mimic will be hiding in ambush, and the hope is that we see them before they see us. They are vulnerable to radiant damage, so that is what we will use to defeat them. Once the Mimic is defeated, we can pick up the Umbral gem and teleport back to the entrance. Next, we'll head down the stairs to the final test, the Faith Leap Trial. I usually end up using a potion of flying to trivialize this test, and we just have to have Shadowheart fly to the parts of the walkway that can still be seen, starting down on either side of the ancient altar. Once we've made it across, we'll grab the Umbral gem and then teleport back. There are a couple more things we should do before going to the Inner Sanctum. First, we'll move a short distance south to the Silent Library, where an orb named the Librarian channels a silent spell on the whole library. We can sneak in with Lae'zel and Karlach to get surprise on the enemies here, and mostly clean up everything before the enemies have a chance to attack. Once we've cleared the encounter, we will need to loot the trapped bookcase in the northeast corner of the room, specifically the bookcase on the left side. It should have a book titled Teachings of Loss, the Night Singer, and we will need this momentarily. Next, we can open the nearby portcullis by clicking the button in the northwest corner of the room. In this new area, we will need to interact with the pedestal labeled Riddle of the Night and insert the Night Singer book that we just picked up. This will open a final chamber where we will get 3 items: the Dark Justiciar half-plate, Spear of Night, and Dark Justiciar helmet from a chest in the back. It's essential that we keep the Spear of Night on Shadowheart until we finish things up in the Gauntlet of Shar. Finally, let's see to our rat problem. We will want a level 3 or higher spell slot on Shadowheart for this next part. After leaving the library, we can follow the trail of rats east into the lower levels of the temple. Once we're down there, we will be confronted by the collective of rats, and a combat encounter will ensue. Similar to how we dealt with the Oliver encounter, we can use Spirit Guardians on Shadowheart, then have the rest of the party huddle around her. The horde of rats will fling themselves into the meat grinder until they have all been defeated. Once they are all defeated, we will meet a new character, Lyrthindor. Regardless of what we say, Lyrthindor will attack us and we will need to defeat him. Upon defeat, he will drop the Justiciar's Scimitar and the Justiciar's Great Shield. At this point, we can return to the Gauntlet fast travel point and move east towards the elevator. To activate it, we'll need to place an Umbral gem in the Ancient Altar. We can then take the lift down to the Inner Sanctum. There, we'll find another Ancient Altar, and all 3 of our remaining Umbral gems will need to be inserted to access the Inner Sanctum. Beyond the door, we will discover the Verge of the Shadows fast travel point, and this is a major point of no return in the game. What I mean is that after we enter the Shadowfell up ahead, all locations from Act 1 will be blocked off and inaccessible. So if you still wanted to explore or complete any tasks in the Nautiloid Crash region, Mountain Pass, or Underdark, then now is the time to do it. Also, if we are going to continue our romance with Karlach, then we need to do it before entering the Shadowfell. Before doing that, however, let's cover the other remaining long rests. After the first long rest, and because we defeated Yurgir, Raphael will confront us and fulfill the deal he made with Astarion. To earn some approval with Astarion, we will eventually want to say, "Of course I'll help," we'll hunt him down and kill him. We can also speak with Astarion after the fact about Obladra, the Blood Merchant, although I don't think there is much to be gained here in the way of approval. The next day we can speak with Arabella to unlock the Arabella's Shadow Entangle spell and get the Shadow Blade Ring. We will also set events in motion so that we can see Arabella again in Act 3. At the next long rest, we can speak with a projection of Gale to trigger an important story moment with him, and we should probably do our best to talk him out of blowing himself up. The next day, we can talk with Gale about the previous night. Depending on who you have an active romance with, there may be more unique long rests to take, so it's a good idea to keep taking long rests until nothing new or eventful happens. Also, don't worry about doing any morning prep for an adventuring day, as we still have one more long rest to take before we can move on. Okay, so now we can continue our romance with Karlach. In order to do that, we will need to go to Last Light Inn and speak with Dammon while Karlach is with us and while we have a piece of infernal iron. We can then give Dammon the iron so that he can give Karlach her second upgrade. At this point, we can finally kiss Karlach without getting our lips burned off. To initiate Karlach's Act 2 romance, we will need to speak with her and say, "I'm so happy for you," for both of us if I'm honest. After that, we can take a long rest, then find and speak with Karlach, saying, "Of course, nothing would make me happier." This will enable the Act 2 romance scene with Karlach to trigger once we go to bed. Now it's up to you how far you want to take things, but if we are going to get the Hot Date achievement in Act 3, we need to make sure to at least stay romantic with Karlach on some level. The next day, we can speak to Karlach and assure her that we are still interested in carrying on a romantic relationship. Saying "I love you" here will get a pretty funny response from Karlach. We can also make a manual save here if we want, a point of no return for romance options. That is because this is the last chance we have to choose between romancing Karlach and Shadowheart or some other companion. If you already have the Hot Date achievement, or if you just don't care and want to romance Shadowheart anyways, you can speak with her and say "I didn't realize you felt that way about me," followed by "wait, this is wrong, you're the one I'm supposed to be with," and finally, consider it done. Karlach will understandably be pretty ticked off about that decision, but she will get over it quickly enough and still consider us a friend. There is also a dialogue option when speaking to Karlach that can lose us a whole 30 points of approval with her, and I'll let you guess which one that is. All of that said, for the purposes of this guide series, we are going to stay true to our word, so when speaking with Shadowheart, we can go ahead and choose one of the other two dialogue options. Either way, the outcome will be the same. Shadowheart will remain a friend, and we will lock in Karlach as our romance choice for the remainder of the game. Afterwards, we can speak with Karlach once more, this time about choosing her over everyone else. Alright, with all of that romance stuff covered, let's do our daily preparation and move on to the final stretch of Act 2. This preparation includes a soul coin for Karlach, elixirs of Hill Giant strength for both Karlach and Lae'zel, and using the Drakethroat Glaive weapon buff on Lae'zel. We will want to double check to make sure that we have the Spear of Night on Shadowheart, then after fast traveling to the Verge of the Shadows, we can enter the Shadowfell, which will prompt a prayer from Shadowheart. You can try to pry into this commune, but it will definitely earn you some disapproval from Shadowheart. Once again, entering the Shadowfell is a point of no return, so we'll make sure we've done everything else we've wanted to, then enter the Shadowfell. We will then need to hop our way down to the central platform within the Shadowfell, and make sure that everyone is following along, as this can get a bit buggy. There, we will find the Night Song bound in a soul cage. Approaching her will trigger a major cutscene in Shadowheart's story, as well as a major choice. Shadowheart will need to choose to either kill the Night Song or to spare her. The immediate rewards for Shadowheart killing the Night Song are pretty awesome, and I'll be the first to admit that. However, the long-term consequences are much more negative and make this a pretty hard choice to justify. If Shadowheart kills Night Song, we will lose access to two great companions for Act 3, one of the best vendors in Act 3, Dammon, and we will lock ourselves out of earning the Leave No One Behind achievement. It also leads to a pretty sad ending for Shadowheart and just nukes so many other storylines without adding much of anything to replace what is lost. Because of all that, for this guide series, we will need Shadowheart to spare Night Song. Now, if we've done everything right up to this point, we can just not interfere and allow Shadowheart to decide for herself. She should make the right decision. However, if that fails, we can also load back to a previous save and talk her into sparing Night Song. But I personally prefer it if she makes the right choice on her own. As a quick aside, I have a whole story video on Shadowheart and the different choices she could have made, in case you were interested. I'll leave a link to it near the bottom of this video's description. In any case, after Night Song is freed, we will get the Moonlight Glaive as a reward, and can leave the Shadowfell. Shadowheart will want to talk to us about her unseen encounter with Shar, and we can reassure her that she did the right thing. Next, we can make a brief stopover at Last Light Inn to inform Isobel about recent events. Ultimately though, our destination is Moonrise Towers. Also, if we still have the rune powder barrel, we can go grab it, as this part coming up is probably one of the best times to use it. At Moonrise, there is a lot of sellable gear to be picked up from these scattered bodies, so take some time to gather it and send it back to camp. Afterwards, we'll speak with Jaheira and plan out a strategy. I would recommend not having her join the party, at least not yet, as it can result in a bit of a buggy situation. Before initiating the first fight, we can enter turn-based mode and do a little preparation. We can cast Twin Haste on Shadowheart and Lae'zel. Karlach can cast Haste on herself thanks to the Darkfire shortbow, and Shadowheart can cast Spirit Guardians at 4th level. We can also have everyone group up, then throw down a potion of flying at the center to give everyone a major mobility boost. Once ready, we can save the game, exit turn-based mode, and move forward to trigger the encounter. You can play out that dialogue if you want, but while that's happening, anyone not in the dialogue, so basically everyone but our main character, will be losing their timed buffs, flying, haste, spirit guardians, etc. Because of that, I'd recommend that after seeing what Z'rell has to say, we go back to the previous save and skip through the dialogue to initiate turn-based combat as quickly as possible. The first thing we'll do in combat is have Shadowheart fly past the enemy frontliners, place the rune powder barrel on the staircase in front of the 2 adepts, then fly back to safety using dash if necessary. Next, we can set off the rune powder barrel with a firebolt from our main character. This should wipe out most of the enemies in the first room. Amongst the survivors, we definitely want to prioritize either taking down or stunning Z'rell, the Zealots, and the Adepts before they can take their turns. Basically, they are the most likely to do significant harm to ourselves and our allies. When only a few enemies remain, we can begin moving at least one of our characters towards the prison entrance, as there is a battle to be fought down there also. And if we are efficient with our timing, we can maintain all of our timed buffs through the end of that fight. Right after the first battle ends, we can quickly take a short rest to recover resources, then enter the prison. This battle is a bit easier. We can start by having Shadowheart fly around the first room, wreaking havoc on the undead. We can also use her Radiance of the Dawn ability once or twice to wipe out the stragglers. Next, we can have Karlach fly to the backline and deal with the Mistresses of Souls, stunning them so that they are not able to summon more reinforcements. Lae'zel can do the heavy lifting when it comes to finishing off the Death Shepherd. Once that fight is won, we can return to the main level and speak with Jaheira. If we pick the option I detect a hint of envy, followed by then consider yourself persuaded, we will get Jaheira as a temporary ally. We will then go upstairs and defeat Radija, the Mistress of Souls, standing guard, along with her Necromites. We'll want to be sure to stun or defeat Radija before she takes her turn, otherwise she'll likely hit the party with a nasty fireball. Once again, we will want to prepare to fight before going to the rooftop. A twin haste on Karlach and Lae'zel, along with Shadowheart using Spirit Guardians, should suffice. We should also probably save the game before going to the rooftop. This time, because everyone will be involved in the cutscene, we do not need to worry about rushing through any dialogue. If we succeed on the speech checks here, it will make a later encounter slightly easier. That being said, it's not critical that we succeed, and these particular speech checks are quite difficult to pass if you are not save scumming. Also, if we have Shadowheart use guidance here, she will stop concentrating on Spirit Guardians. For the fight that follows, we will want to stun and damage down Ketheric fast. This will cause him to retreat, leaving us to clean up the remaining enemies. As a heads up, we don't need to take a long rest after this battle, as there will be a restoration device that we can use before our next combat. We can loot a key and magic mace off the Mistress of Souls, and the Ring of Exalted Marrow from the chest on the north side of the rooftop. Afterwards, we can speak with Shadowheart and tell her to return to camp. Then speak with Jaheira near the east side of the rooftop. To permanently recruit Jaheira as a companion, we can say, "Don't you want to see how this ends?" followed by, "Join me then." And at this point, we can send her back to camp as a permanent companion. Also, if we want to get a unique and very rare rapier, we will need to have Will with us when we go into the Hollow Tower. To be frank, I personally won't be using the rapier at all, but it is a neat and unique weapon, so I will be covering how to get it in this guide. If you don't care to get it or feel like it will be more trouble than it's worth, feel free to just keep your current party. That being said, there are 1 or 2 items you'll want to make sure that you have before jumping into the Hollow Tower, which we will get to in a moment. If we want to see Gale blow himself up to destroy the Absolute and end the game early, we will need to bring him along. We can also talk him out of doing that. However, there are no unique achievements associated with having Gale blow himself up, so I won't be bringing him along in this guide. That being said, if you want to, you can do so, and you can even respec him as a fighter to fill Lae'zel's role. However, he won't perform as well as her, especially if Lae'zel currently has the Silver Sword. As mentioned before, I will not be bringing Gale along in this guide. So, assuming we want to get the rapier, we can return to camp to grab Will. Also, we've gotten to the point where we can actually do something with those brain jars we got near the start of the game aboard the Nautiloid. So we'll make sure to grab those from storage if we don't already have them on us. Now, I haven't had Will in my party up to this point. Because of that, I'm just going to be quickly leveling him up, picking Pact of the Tome to get the haste spell. I will also be giving him the alert feat. It probably isn't necessary to gear him up and make him super powerful, given that we already have Karlach and Lae'zel, 2 powerhouses. But both the potent robes and bracers of defense are pretty good on him, and we can further increase his AC with mage armor. In any case, once we are ready, we can return to the Moonrise Towers rooftop, and after making a manual save, enter the Hollow Tower. The first thing we can do here is destroy the membrane in our path, then move a good distance east. There is an elevator here, which we will hold off on using for now, but there is also a restoration point, which we can come back to and use as often as needed to get back health and resources. There is also a fresh mind to the north, which we can pick up and make use of within this area, more on that later. For now, we will backtrack a short distance and head down the hall to the northeast. After entering the barracks, we can haste both Lae'zel and Karlach, then gain surprise on the cultists to the north and clear them out before they have a chance to act. Even if we don't gain surprise, this encounter is pretty easy. In the northwest chamber of the barracks, we'll find a closed mind, which once again we can pick up and hang on to. Next, we'll go through the door to the west, into the Tadpoling Center. Here is where we will find the devil that Will was tasked with saving, trapped within a Mind Flayer pod in the western corner of the room. We can perform a passive arcana check on the left and right devices to determine what they do. That being said, I am pretty sure the device on the left will always kill Mizora, and by extension, Will, whereas the device on the right will set Mizora free. That being said, it's probably best to save before making a choice, just to be safe, or if you just want to see what happens when you kill Mizora, which I won't spoil. In any case, we will go ahead and connect to the device on the right, which should set Mizora free. If we can pass a persuasion skill check here, we will be rewarded with the Infernal Rapier, which Will can definitely make good use of. At the very least, the Cambion ally he can summon with it should help in the battles to come. We can also try to speak with Will, but he won't want to get into any long discussions until after Ketheric has been defeated. Next, we will move south to a new room with many more Mind Flayer pods. To make the next combat encounter easier, we can quickly clear out all of the nearby Intellect Devourers. Even with those dealt with, this next encounter can still spiral pretty quickly, and we must protect at least one of the prisoners in order to eventually get the Leave No One Behind achievement. Because of that, we will locate the neural apparatus in the northeast corner of the room, cast Twin Haste on Karlach and Lae'zel, then quickly release all the prisoners as well as the 4 Mind Flayers. Ideally, we keep all the Mind Flayers stunned or otherwise defeat them. If we don't, they will definitely be trying to stun all of us with Mind Blast. You may have noticed that one of the prisoners is Zevlor, and he is the one that we must ensure survives the encounter. Afterwards, he will speak to us and we can get an explanation on what happened to the Tieflings in the Shadow-Cursed lands. Around this time, we should reach level 9, gaining access to level 5 spells on casters. For Sorcerer, I like to take Greater Invisibility as it will come in handy at least once in the near future. We can learn Flame Strike on Will, which will be good for the battles to come. For Karlach, we can actually multi-class at this point, taking 1 level of Rogue. We will need to take 3 levels of Rogue before we actually see it benefit her combat capabilities, but in the meantime, we will still benefit greatly from her new expertise in the Sleight of Hand skill. For Lae'zel, we'll stay the course as a fighter, gaining the Indomitable class feature. Moving on, we can head out the south exit and return to the restoration device to gain back health and resources. We will then want to backtrack and head south, where another pretty large combat encounter will ensue. That being said, we can take advantage of Twinned Haste and also get surprise on the enemies to make the encounter much easier. Will's Flame Strike spell is also pretty nice here. After clearing all of the enemies, we can jump our way south to a large circular chamber with a console near the center, and touching it will start an interactive minigame of sorts. What we need to do is make a path along the nodes, connecting each of the 4 parts of the brain with their corresponding parts on the other side. The trick is that each part cannot have an overlapping path with any other part. If we mess up at any point, we can interact with the console to reset everything and try again. Feel free to work out the puzzle on your own, but I'll also just be showing the solution on screen. Once we've fully connected the brain, we can move further south to a newly opened chamber. We'll find a desecrated relief here, which you may recognize from the game's opening cinematic. We will also find the Blade of Oppressed Souls, Brain Drain Gloves, and Circlet of Mental Anguish, along with a Waking Mind, which we can make use of right now. To do that, we will first make our way back to the room that was full of zombies. There is a small chamber in the southwest corner that we can jump over to. The resonant stone here has some cool properties, so we can go ahead and send that back to camp. There are also 2 more brain jars. To interact with the brain jars or minds, insert one into the Mind Archive interface, then speak with the slack-skinned head. Most of these minds will offer purely lore and story-based dialogue. The Dark Mind and Fresh Mind are both particularly unsettling. That being said, the Waking Mind actually offers a pretty nice permanent buff. To get it, we'll want to start with "I'm listening, what aid are you offering?" followed by "I'll do it." And then finally, we can reach out and erase her mind. This will give us the Gith-Zerai Mind Barrier condition, permanently granting us advantage on intelligence saving throws. There is just one last task we will want to take care of here to the northwest. There we'll find the morgue, where an abnormal-looking intellect devourer is being held in a cage. There is also the Butchered Mind here, but it only offers a bit of dialogue back at the Mind Archive interface. In any case, the abnormal intellect devourer just so happens to be us from the start of our adventures. We can either break us out of his cage and deal with a minor combat encounter, or we can convince Chop to give us when he notices that we are trying to open the cage. Once the cage is open, we can speak to us to get the Summon Us item, which can be used once per short rest. With that all taken care of, we can make our way back to the eastmost room, use the restoration device one last time, then take the lift down to the final room. We don't need to prepare for combat until after we enter through the door. When we do go through the door, it will just trigger a major cutscene. This is where, if we had Gale with us, he would try to blow himself up, along with everyone else. And we could either let him or talk him out of it. If he is not with us though, then it won't be an option in the first place. After the cutscene, we can go ahead and prepare for combat. At this point, you probably know the routine. Enter turn-based mode, use Twinned Haste, throw down Potion of Flying, have the character with the Darkfire Shortbow haste a third character, and Will can cast haste on the fourth. We can even have Karlach use Wholeness of Body. Once we are ready, we can run forward to initiate the encounter. The resulting dialogue will pull in all characters, so we don't have to worry about temporary buffs wearing off. The first thing we need to do in this encounter is free Nightsong. I had Lae'zel do this using the Boots of Speed to give her enough movement to make it. Along the way, we can stop at the Mind Flayer and either stun it with Soulbreaker or otherwise kill it outright. Do keep in mind that we will need a whole action in order to free Nightsong. Thankfully, we have Action Surge on Lae'zel, so that should not be a problem. Once Nightsong is free, we can move over to Ketheric, potentially tripping him if we have any attacks left on Lae'zel. Also, to get an achievement here, we will need to prevent the boss from consuming any Necromites. We can get ahead of this problem by having Will use Flame Strike on the group of Necromites to the north. If Will is hasted, he can also cast a second Flame Strike on the Intellect Devourers to the south. It can also be a good tactic to purposefully provoke an opportunity attack from Ketheric, thereby using up his one reaction. We can then clean up any stragglers with Magic Missile from our main character. That just leaves Karlach to deal a load of hurt on Ketheric. If we can stun Ketheric, we are better off letting him survive a round of combat so that we can get back our actions on all of our characters. Also, I recommend pausing the video here until you reduce Ketheric to 0 health. Once Ketheric is brought to 0 health, there will be a cutscene, followed by a second phase of the fight. If we were sure to get back all of our actions before defeating Ketheric's first phase, we have a decent shot at being able to defeat the Apostle of Myrkul before it gets to act. That, or at the very least, stun it so that it cannot act on its turn. Even if we fail to do either, it will most likely be fine, and we can just finish the Apostle off on the very next turn. Either way, the boss should not have a chance to consume any necromites, and as a result, we will earn the No Free Lunches achievement. Looting Ketheric will trigger another cutscene, in which we can learn a lot about the enemies we are up against. Afterwards, we can loot Ketheric. Before taking the portal back to the main floor of Moonrise Towers, we can actually backtrack to the restoration device and use it once more. Once we do return to the main floor of Moonrise, Karlach will talk to us about Gortash, and this conversation has one of my favorite lines from Karlach, and I really want to show it here.
And now he'll use up the entire Sword Coast. He has to die. And I'm gonna be the one who kills him!
We can then speak to Will about his father, Duke Ravengard, and also about his pact with Mizora. We should next speak with Jaheira and eventually say, "I'll be glad to have you by my side," in order to gain her as a permanent companion. For now, we can say, "I'll see you at camp." We'll make room in the party for Jaheira once we get to Act 3, but there are still some combat encounters to complete before we get there. Withers will want to speak with us briefly, giving us more info about our enemies. Up the stairs, we can speak with Alfira and the Tiefling children if we so choose. We can speak with Ardculla, but regardless of what we say, he won't be joining the camp. We can also speak with Halsin, and he should confirm that the Shadow Curse will be lifted. It just so happens that the Shadow Curse will lift as soon as we leave Act 2 to start Act 3. Next, we'll need to speak with Nightsong and invite both her and Isobel to join us at our camp. Out in the entrance hall, we can find Quartermaster Tally in case we wanted to do some trading. More importantly, we will need to find and speak with Wulbren to the northwest. After that, we need to speak with Barcus about Wulbren. In any case, we should agree to help Barcus deal with the Iron Hand gnomes in Baldur's Gate. At this point, we can send Will back to camp and go get Shadowheart back in the party. She's level 10 now and gains access to some new and powerful spells. Let's take care of one more combat encounter before taking our remaining long rests for Act 2. For this, we will need to fast travel to Moonrise Towers. Doing this will trigger a short exchange with the Dream Visitor, and we can play it however we want. Moving on, we'll head north from the fast travel point until we reach the Sharran Sanctuary. From there, we'll head west. As we approach an overpass, we should get a warning from the psionic detector that we are going to be ambushed. When that happens, we can stop and take a second to apply haste and cast other important spells before triggering the encounter. Doing this should make the encounter relatively easy, and we can get some nice magic items off of the Avatar of Vlaakith. Moving a little further west, we will discover the Road to Baldur's Gate fast travel point. But before we move on to Act 3, let's go ahead and complete a couple more long rests. During the first of these, we can speak with Dame Aylin in order to learn the truth of Shadowheart's past, and we should say I'll help when given the option. Dame Aylin will also give us a legendary weapon, Selûne's Spear of Night. It's pretty cool, but to be honest, I haven't really found a good use for it at this stage in the game. The next day, we can speak with Shadowheart and agree to help her find her parents. After taking a second long rest, we will see that Shadowheart has changed her hair. To proceed to Act 3, we'll just need to leave camp, head a short distance northwest, and take the path to Baldur's Gate. There are a ton of important things to do in Act 3, which will bring about the conclusion of all major storylines, including the main one. All of that will be covered in the third and final video of this series. In the meantime, we've done basically everything important in Act 2, to the point where you can explore freely. Just avoid killing any friendly NPCs. Also, I would recommend making a manual save before heading to Baldur's Gate, as once we leave Act 2, we will not be able to return. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me in the comments where I'll do my best to help. If you want to watch part 3, you can find it over on my channel, and if you're new, consider subscribing. You're helping me feed my cat. Her name's Marshmallow. Have a great day. If you're here today, have a great Friday and a great weekend. And as always, thanks for watching.